And then my father was a very authoritarian Swiss. You know, he told you what to order in a restaurant, what to eat, when to come home. Everything was his control. And he also decided that I had to join his business. And I'm not a businesswoman. I would have been an unhappy, miserable grouch for the rest of my life. Probably very rich and successful, but unhappy. And I said, no, thank you. Natural anger. And my father did not take no, thank you. So I left home. And that was very hard also, but a blessing, because in the process of finding out who I am as a human being, as an individual, I was able to do all these fabulous things after the war, which you can only do in a post-war period, where you can hitchhike with the equivalent of $2 in your pocket, went all the way to Russia and back, slept behind cemetery walls. I wasn't afraid of anything. That was one great asset I had. And I knew that people were afraid of cemeteries, especially at midnight. And it was the only safe place for a young girl to sleep. I was wrapped in a blanket and slept there. And that's where I learned my biggest lesson, is that under certain circumstances in life, all of us can be Hitlers and very destructive, even if you think you're a Pestalozzi or a Mother Teresa. At one time, for 3 days, I had no food in my stomach, and I was starved. And suddenly the thought occurred to me, if a little girl would walk by me with a piece of bread in her hand, I would steal a piece of bread out of that girl's hand. And I love children. And I think when you have experienced that, you would never condemn a man and send him to prison because he steals when he's hungry. Do you understand that it enhances your compassion and your understanding? That's very different from reading a book. You have to live it. When I came to Majdanek, to the concentration camp, it's different reading a book like Anne Frank. You can cry for a moment and, you know, empathize, but to stand in front of a concentration camp and see trainloads of baby shoes of murdered children, 960,000 children were put in gas chambers and murdered and starved to death. And you look at these trainloads of baby shoes of the victims, and you look at carloads of women's hair that was removed to send back to make cloths for winter coats out of it. And I think that my interest was not death and dying. My interest was what kind of man and woman can put thousands of children in gas chambers, and they worry at the same time if their child at home has chicken pox. It's so incongruent. And I went into the wooden barracks to see if the children left a message. I wanted to know how they walked into death knowing that it's coming, and nothing they can do about it. And I saw messages to mommies and daddies, but the most frequent symbol was butterflies scratched into the wooden barrack walls. And I needed to know what those children knew that I didn't know. And they were little guys, you know, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And then a young Jewish girl watched me and we started to talk. And she said, you would be capable of doing things like this. I said, oh no, not me. And she said, oh yes, you. Because I watched my grandparents, my parents, my brothers and sisters walk into the gas chamber. And I was spared because there wasn't room for another one. And I swore I'm going to spend the rest of my life telling everybody about the atrocities of Nazi Germany. And when they came to liberate the camp, I looked at those young men and I said, oh my God, I almost did it. Because if I would actually do that, I would not be any better than Hitler himself. Because all I would do is to plant seeds of hate. And for that I survived, she said. And she said, so you see, all of us have the free choice to acknowledge the negativity in us and get rid of it. And then we can all become, I use the symbol now of Mother Teresa, if you understand that. And to become unconditionally loving, which I think is the ultimate goal if we will have a better world, is to be honest enough to acknowledge our Hitler in us. And if you have a safe place where you can share that, where you can externalize that and let go of it, then you automatically become a more compassionate, more loving person.